Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Becomes the Monarch of Shadows Part 5 Season 2, Chapter 1. Familiar Forest. Third person POV. In another part of the world, Nepal to be exact, stood one of its several mountains. Nepal was known to have some of the tallest mountains in the entire world, some that reach higher than the clouds. Sitting on the edge of one of the mountains was a powerful being, a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and grey eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark grey eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. Her attire consisted of a black gothic Lolita fashion. This girl was none other than Office, the Ouroboros dragon, and the infinite dragon god. She was one of the two most powerful beings in the universe. If she wanted to, she could easily wipe out all life on the planet with a single attack or destroy the planet itself. Office's appearance wasn't really her true appearance, this was only one of many she has taken over the countless years. One of the previous forms she has taken was an old man with a long white beard, something that would terrify a lot of people for obvious reasons. Who the hell would want to see something like that? It would only creep them out. Another form was a small purple snake with grey diamonds, another form that many people did not prefer since it was a snake and that would only leave people, mainly humans, scared stiff. This gothic appearance was yet another one of her many forms. She has gone through so many that no one is sure if there is an exact number of them. Currently, Office was smiling, which was something that has not been observed by many eyes before. The reason for this is because she had just watched a battle between the human, Issei and the heir to the Phoenix household, Rise Phoenix. At first, she didn't find it interesting, but when she saw Issei won the match, that caught her attention. She didn't think a human would be able to do something like that, especially since she knew that they could easily die to fire. Looks like she was proven wrong. Office. Issei, do you interest me? Meanwhile in heaven. Heaven, also known as the heavens, is a common religious, cosmological or transcendent supernatural place where beings such as deities, angels, souls, saints, or venerated ancestors are said to originate, be enthroned, or reside. According to the beliefs of some religions, heavenly beings can descend to earth or incarnate, and earthly beings can ascend to heaven in the afterlife, or, in exceptional cases, enter heaven alive. Heaven is often described as the highest place, the holiest place, a paradise, in contrast to hell or the underworld or the low places, and universally or conditionally accessible by earthly beings, according to various standards of divinity, goodness, piety, faith, or other virtues or right beliefs, or simply divine will. Some believe in the possibility of a heaven on earth in a world to come. Sitting in an office, overlooking most of heaven, rewatching the battle between Riser and Issei, was a handsome-looking man with long blonde hair and green eyes. He wore a red robe with a gold cross on the front of his white alb. He had golden shoulder plates with a white sash and a golden halo set above his head. This man's name was Michael, a high-ranking angel who was the leader of the angel faction and the leader of seraphs. He was one of the god of the Bible's creations who took over after the Great War. His current goals are to recreate the lost members of heaven and guide the church with God's teachings. Michael. That boy had some very impressive skills, what do you think? Michael looked over to his left, and standing next to him was an extremely beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure. She had the appearance of a 16 to 17-year-old with curly blonde hair and bright blue eyes. This person was Gabriel, a member of the 4 great seraphs. She and the other 3 seraphs were the greatest warriors that the God of the Bible had. Unlike regular angels who only had a single pair of gold and feathered wings, Gabriel and the other 3 seraphs had 12 pairs of wings. This signaled their power, status, and importance within the hierarchy within heaven. Gabriel. I do agree, brother. He certainly does have some skill. Gabriel smiled as she secretly looked away, a small blush crawling onto her face as she could feel her heart beating in her chest. Why was she feeling like this? The moment she saw Issei's face on the screen, she started acting all strange. Was this love? Angels have never experienced love before, so it was quite new to her, but she has heard so much about it that she wants to learn more. She never got the chance to learn much about the world that her father created since she was trained to be a warrior and protect her father from the forces of hell back in the day. So while she possesses no knowledge about love, she can say for certain that Issei was easily the most handsome human she had ever laid her eyes upon. Gabriel. I wonder, can I meet him? Meanwhile in Asgard. Asgard. In Nordic mythology, Asgard is a location associated with the Norse gods. It appears in a multitude of Old Norse sagas and mythological texts. It has been described as the fortified home of the Aesir gods, often associated with gold imagery. Very little is known about Asgard since not many have ever seen the place, not even the other gods like Greek or Egyptians know much about the mystical place. Sitting within a throne room was a very powerful being, the leader of the Norse gods, the king if you will. The person was a well-built old man wearing formal robes. He had long black hair and a long black goatee, one of his eyes was yellow with black sclera and wore an eye patch over his left eye. He had long black hair and a long black goatee, one of his eyes was yellow with black sclera and wore an eye patch over his left eye. This man was known as Odin, a Norse god that went by many titles and names. One of these titles is the Allfather, and many still question why he is called that. Odin is associated with wisdom, healing, death, royalty, the gallows, knowledge, war, battle, victory, sorcery, poetry, frenzy, and the runic alphabet. Odin is a prominently mentioned god throughout the recorded history of the Germanic peoples, from the Roman occupation of regions of Germany through the tribal expansions of the Migration period and the Viking Age. Even in the modern age, the Allfather is still appearing within folklore, though not as much as his sons, since they are more liked by mortals. Odin had just finished watching the fight between that foolish and arrogant Riser Phoenix and the mysterious human known as Issei. The Norse god almost wanted to crack up laughing because the boy reminded him of his son, Thor, when he was very young. Sure, being a god and all, Thor was still older than Issei, but that didn't mean that Odin couldn't compare the two together. Odin. You're very mysterious, Issei. Throughout the battle, Odin could feel the boy's raw power through the screen. Odin had never felt such a powerful aura before, which is a surprise since he has been around other gods a few times like his son Thor, and hell even gods like Zeus and Ra. This aura felt different though, it didn't belong to any supernatural being that he knows of. It belonged to something that existed far beyond the 9 realms, something full of death. Odin. Issei, I wonder. A small smile grew on Odin's face. Odin. Will you give my son Thor the challenge he seeks? Meanwhile with Issei. Issei groaned as he slowly opened his eyes, his body was feeling very strange, his eyes felt heavy, there was a strong painful sensation within his chest, and something just felt very off to him. Issei. What the he? It took a few seconds, but Issei finally took notice of his surroundings. When he closed his eyes, he fully expected to find himself somewhere because he was dreaming. He knew that this was a dream, but this wasn't the type of dream he imagined. In fact, the place Issei found himself was unusual. He found himself floating within an endless void of nothingness, and all around him was constant darkness for miles and miles. Issei. Where am I? What is this? He didn't panic, he couldn't start panicking right now. Issei had to remain calm and try to figure out his situation, well if he could at all. There were many questions were flowing through the brown-haired boy's mind, was this because of the system? The location almost felt similar to what he felt when he saw those figures, the pressure that washed over his body. It wasn't anything that he felt before, but now he knows the feeling this time. What was the system doing to him? Was it trying to show him something? Issei wouldn't put it past the system, it has done some very strange things to him when he first got it. However, it doesn't do them frequently though. He wasn't sure himself, but it was almost like what an anime would do at the end of an arc, it would give small sneak peeks of something yet to come. Issei. Just what is your plan, system? What are you doing to me this time? Suddenly, Issei's eyes widened as he felt a surge flow throughout his body, this resulted in his body shaking a little as sweat began to run down his forehead. What he had just felt was beyond that the pressure that occurred when he saw those figures in that dream of his. This one, however, was far beyond that, it was so much stronger, unimaginably one could say. So much so that it reignited the fear that Issei felt when Uma revealed herself to him on their date, the fear and the terror, it was just like that. But when things couldn't get any worse for the brown-haired boy, there was a massive explosion not too far from him, which sent out a shockwave throughout the endless black abyss. Issei gritted his teeth as he used his arms to block the wind from the shockwave. He was also glad that the place he was in was devoid of any life entirely, or else things would have been bad. Issei. What the hell was that? Issei uncovered his eyes and looked toward where the explosion took place. He couldn't see much because there were dark gray clouds that had formed after the blast. Narrowing his eyes, Issei watched as the gray clouds started to slowly fade away from the area. When they did though, he gasped as he frightfully gazed upon 2 colossal beings that appeared to be in a standoff with each other. One glowed a dark purple while the other glowed a scarlet red color, their mere aura warped the fabric of reality around them. The two glared at each other, hatred filling their eyes as they were completely oblivious to Issei's existence. It then struck Issei, this was no mere dream. No, this had to be a vision of some kind, something that shall occur in the far future, something that he will have to go up against and hopefully defeat. But there was only one thing going through Issei's mind when he thought that, could he really take on such beings as those before him? Whoever these colossal beings were, Issei could tell that they radiated pure and unmatched power. Issei. Who are they? The two beings continued their little standoff with each other, but it soon came to a complete halt when both of them charged and rammed into their opponent, resulting in a loud crash. As gray clouds and dark matter swirled around them, bolts of scarlet red and purple lightning flashed and thunder boomed resonantly. The collision forced Issei away from the two beings, who flew back and separated. Issei was left shocked, a simple collision with each other's bodies did all that he kinda didn't want to know what their attack was. It was now clear to the boy, the two monsters before him were on a completely other level than he was, there was no way in either heaven or hell he would be able to take on them both and defeat them. He wouldn't be able to defeat even one of them. They were just too powerful. Issei. Those two. Issei. They are true monsters. The being covered in scarlet aura opened its mouth and fired a beam of flames toward the other one who easily dodged the attack. It then held its hand out and summoned a massive sword which was covered in purple flames. Issei remained where he was as he watched the first being leap into the air and slash the air, launching a purple crescent of purple energy. Seeing no way of escape, the colossal being simply took the attack head-on, which resulted in a massive explosion. The being growled through the smoke as its crimson red eyes burned through the grey clouds, glaring at the being who had just assaulted it. Issei had to admit that these two beings were not only just powerful, but also durable at the same time. Maybe he was just overthinking this, but he felt like the attack from the purple being could easily slice through buildings like they were butter. Holding his sword in front of him, the being shrouded in purple narrowed its eyes at the enemy who roared in anger. It then started to charge up an attack. Issei's eyes widened as he knew that it wasn't gonna be good. He looked at the purple being. Issei. Hey. You better dodge this. Once again, the brown-haired boy was ignored as the two didn't even acknowledge his existence. The scarlet one fired a massive beam of flames toward the purple one who readied its sword to block the attack, a foolish idea. Issei was blown back as the attack was fired. He watched as the beam slowly approached the purple being who swung its sword toward the beam. However, beep, 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 beep. Issei's eyes shot open as he was greeted by the sight of his bedroom ceiling. He quickly turned off his alarm clock as his ears were ringing. The brown-haired boy panted slightly as he could feel sweat rolling down his forehead, which made sense since he had just seen something that was completely hellish. He had no idea what he had just seen, but he gets the feeling that whoever those two beings will force their way into his life and he'll have to deal with it. Issei. Fucking hell, that was some Nightmare on Elm Street type of shit. He soon felt some weight on his body which confused him. Why the hell would there be a weight on his body? Issei knew that it could have been Yuruchi since she has tended to sleep on his chest from time to time, which wasn't really much of a surprise. Though, he can't help but feel like it wasn't just Yuruchi. Issei turned his head and to his surprise, he was greeted by the sight of a naked Ria's Gremory who was sleeping soundly next to him. Two things were going through his mind as he stared at the slumbering Gremory. The first and obvious one was that she was sleeping naked next to him. Any regular person would be freaking the hell out, but that isn't the case for Issei. Because of the system, he was still surprised by this. Sure, there are probably males and females that sleep naked in their bed, maybe some married couples do it as well, the ones without any kids that is. But neither Ria's nor Issei were like that at all. In fact, Ria's is the only one who does this, even though this is his first time seeing her naked in his bed. Second of all, how and why the hell was she in his bed? More importantly, how did she even get into his house, for fuck's sake? Issei. How the hell? Last time Issei checked, he didn't invite her over, and it's only been like what? A day or so after he kicked Riser's butt in the most humiliating way he could think of. Issei still finds it funny that a devil with the powers of a phoenix got his ass kicked by a mere human. Then again, Issei still isn't sure he is even human because the things he has done over the last couple of weeks to a month so far have just been crazy. Suddenly, the crimson red-haired devil girl let out a yawn as she rubbed her eyes and slowly began to wake up. Ria's. Is it morning already? Issei watched as Ria's rose up from his soft bed, opening her blue eyes and allowing them to be greeted by the light that shined through the window. She sat up and began to stretch herself out a little, but then she looked at Issei and smiled when she saw that he was awake. Ria's. Oh, good morning, Issei-senpai. Issei raised an eyebrow. Where the hell did the senpai come from? Last time he checked, Ria's was older than him and in the third year while he was only in the second year. So there should be no reason for her to call him that unless she was calling him that for a completely other reason. He has seen in both anime and manga, girls and boys call someone a senpai to show that they deeply care for them, mainly the romantic kind. That is something that Issei hasn't experienced since his fake date with Yuma, and he still needs to figure out where the hell she was. For now, he has other things to worry about, and number one on that list was why was Ria's in his house. Issei. Morning, Ria's. What's with calling me senpai? Ria's blushed slightly. Ria's. And nothing important, I just wanted to call you that. Issei scratched the back of his head. He guessed that it wasn't a bad thing in the end. It was only a nickname, not all of them can hurt someone. Issei. Well, I guess that's alright since it's only a nickname. Hearing this caused Ria's to smile brightly. She was glad that Issei didn't hate her calling him senpai. She owes the brown-haired boy her life after he risked his own life to come and save her for the marriage with Riser Phoenix. She intends to repay his kindness tenfold, no matter what she has to do for him. Issei. Though, can I ask you something? Ria's. Oh, what is that? Issei narrowed his eyes at Ria's. Issei. Why are you in my house? Ria's crossed her arms. Rias. Am I not allowed to sleep with the one who saved my life? Hearing this caused Issei to sigh and shake his head. He hopes that this doesn't become a frequent thing because it will surely get annoying. Issei. I guess not. Suddenly. Knock. 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 Issei, are you awake? It was his mother. He guessed that she was coming to tell him that breakfast was ready. Issei looked over at his bedroom door. Issei. Yeah, Mom. I'm awake. Mickey. Good, breakfast is ready. Issei was about to reply to his mother, but Rias cut him off. Rias. We will be down in a minute. Mickey. Wait, was that Rias? Issei sighed, that is what he was afraid of, and now he has to handle all of this. Issei. Yeah, Mom. It's her. Rias. Morning, Miss Haidu. Mickey. Morning Rias. Do I need to make some more breakfast? Rias giggled. Rias. You might have to. Mickey. Well, I better get to work then. With that, both Rias and Issei heard the brown-haired woman walk away from the bedroom door. Issei shook his head as he got out of his bed, leaving Rias on the bed, and started to grab his school uniform. Rias. Hey, Issei. Issei looked over at Rias as he put on his pants. Issei. Yeah, Rias. She smiled at the boy, she had an idea of rewarding him. Sure, she could always just thank him again, but she never asked him to come to the wedding and crash it. She never asked him to save her even, though she tried to have him take her virginity, but that is beside the point. Besides all that, the crimson red-haired devil girl has decided to take him to a special place, so he can grab something. Rias. I want to take you somewhere after school. This gained his attention and he raised an eyebrow. He then put his shirt on, but before it fully covered him, Rias got a view of Issei's muscular chest, and she liked what she saw. Rias grew a faint blush as the image of Issei's abs will forever be stuck in her mind. Rias. He's so hot. Issei. What's this special place? Rias snapped out of her thoughts and smiled. Rias. No spoilers. Issei can't help but chuckle. He had a feeling that wherever she was gonna take him was somewhere that he has never seen before, which makes sense, since he was still new to the supernatural world. Time skip. After Rias, Issei, his mother, and somehow Sun Wukong managed to get into the brown-haired boy's home, had some breakfast together. Issei said goodbye to his mother as he and Sun Wukong started to make their way toward Kuo Academy, Issei sighing in annoyance. Sun Wukong. What's wrong, buddy? Issei deadpanned at the Monkey King. Was he just acting, or was he actually that stupid? Issei. How the hell did you even get in my house? Sun Wukong chuckled. Sun Wukong. I have my ways, Issei. Issei only sighed and shook his head. He didn't want to deal with any of this right now. He just wanted to get to school, get it over with, and go back home. As the trio walked, Rias decided that now would be the best time to tell Issei what a reward for him was. She knew that she said she would take him after school, but they got plenty of time before class started, and the very place that she was gonna take him may not be opened up later. So it was a case of one or nothing, and she wasn't gonna leave Issei empty-handed. Rias. Hey, Issei. Issei. Both he and Sun Wukong looked over at the heiress of the Gremory household. Rias. Remember I said I was gonna take you somewhere after school. Issei nodded his head. He was still wondering what the place was, since there weren't many that he could know. He has already seen what the underworld or hell and what it looks like, but he doubts it's gonna be somewhere like heaven or where the fallen angels are. That last one wouldn't be so bad actually. He could use that to learn the whereabouts of a certain someone he hasn't been able to forget for the longest time. Issei. Yeah, but I thought you were gonna take me after school. Rias. Well, we left early, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if it will be open later, so we might as well go now. Sun Wukong. Where are you taking him? Rias. Oh, just the familiar forest. Hearing this gained Issei's attention. What the hell was a familiar? Was it some kind of pet? Issei. Familiar. What's a familiar? Sun Wukong looked at the brown-haired boy. Sun Wukong. A familiar is basically a companion for devils. They do various tasks that are pretty simple, while their master do more important ones. Issei was surprised when he heard this. It was basically like having a pet dog or cat. Issei. So, it's like having a pet. Rias. In a way, yes it is. Issei. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Rias smiled. Rias. Well, do you want one? Issei thought about it for a moment. It sounds like something that could be helpful. But does he really need a familiar? He technically already has one, and that was Yuruchi. Well, if someone would count her as his pet. She was her own person, she didn't belong to Issei at all, and she could come and go whenever she pleased. But he doesn't want to be rude to Rias, so maybe he'll just take a look at the familiars. Issei. Sure, I'll have a look. This caused Rias to smile happily. She was glad that Issei accepted her proposal. Rias. Well, shall we get go? Sun Wukong. I'll take us there. At that moment, Sun Wukong placed his hand on both Issei and Ria's shoulders, and before they knew it they were gone and appeared in a place that looked like it was out of a horror movie. There were tons of trees, a few had left and some were dead, the sky was a crimson red color, and there didn't appear to be any sort of sun or moon in the sky. Issei blinked as he looked at his surroundings, he wasn't sure how to react to the new location. It wasn't like the other locations that he has been to, but then again the ones that he did go to were made by the system. The subway, the spider cave, the demon king's castle, the crystal cave, the job change quest location. All 5 of those locations were designed by the system, or rather the creator made the damn thing. Issei wonders if they are actual places that are known to the supernatural world, except the subway one. If that is the case, then maybe Ria's, her brother, Sona, or maybe someone else could tell him about their history. However, that is only a tiny voice in the back of Issei's mind, a theory that he already knew would be incorrect even if he did ask people from the supernatural. Issei. Well, this is a surprise. Sun Wukong chuckled. Sun Wukong. Issei Haidu, welcome to the familiar forest. Issei. Familiar forest. Sun Wukong. Yeah, or the French Franks as some like to call it. Issei raised an eyebrow as he looked at Ria's, seeing if it was actually true that people call the familiar forest the French Franks. The crimson red-haired devil girl shook his head as she stared at the monkey demon with a deadpan expression. Ria's. No one calls it that. Wukong crossed his arms with a huff. Sun Wukong. I do and I'll stick with that. Issei. Well, you do you that then. Ria's. Well, let's take a look around. Issei nodded as he and Sun Wukong started to walk into the dark forest, totally something that teenagers should do, especially if they were in a horror movie. Issei swore that if they ran into Jason, Michael Myers, or even fucking Pennywise the dancing clown, then he was gonna throw a fit. He wasn't in the mood to fight 3 immortal killers like the brown-haired boy had to be out of his fucking mind if he were to do something like that. How the hell did those 3 even get beaten in their movies? Sure, Jason was afraid of water in his crossover movie, but Issei has seen him go into water numerous times in the other movies. Or Michael Myers, his knowledge may be limited on him but wasn't his entire bloodline or family meant to be cursed by a demon or something? He might be wrong, the author hasn't even seen the movies because he is super lazy. Or Pennywise at the dead lights, don't they possess power that basically makes him or her a fucking god? Sure, he understood that Pennywise loved the taste of fear since that was its favorite food. However, if it wanted to put fear in people, would it be better to just scare them in public so that they know he or she exists and would always be worried? Speaking of the clown, what was Pennywise's gender? Was it just genderless? Issei didn't know and he didn't want to find out, he didn't come to the familiar forest for that anyway. He came to the place to take a look around, he still won't need a familiar since he already has his shadow soldiers and Yoruichi who was back home. As he, Rias and Sun Wukong were walking through the dark forest. Unknown to the brown-haired boy, one of his shadow soldiers left and traveled in a completely different direction than his liege. The one in question was none other than the former Blood Red commander, Igris. The knight sensed something close by and decided to investigate the matter, though it was strange that his liege didn't sense what Igris had picked up on. However, this was a good thing since it meant that Igris and himself alone will be checking it out. He wasn't betraying his liege, he would never do something horrible like that in his entire living or dead life. He serves his liege with nothing more than his undying loyalty, but he has been feeling off for the last couple of days. Igris can recall the battle he had with Issei, he nearly killed the boy when he was alive. When he accepted to serve under him, he made a vow to himself that he would protect him from any and all threats and be there to help him in situations. Yet, where was he during the battle with Sun Wukong or even Riser Phoenix? He should have been there for him, he should just show up and protected him. But he didn't. He just stayed on the sidelines and watched as Drake did all the work, sure the former Welsh dragon was a higher rank than him. Igris was only a knight, while the dragon of domination was at a general rank, the very first one. Though that didn't matter, Igris vowed to be the sword and shield for his new liege. He intends to keep that promise, to do that he needs to get stronger than he currently was. Igris traveled through the dark forest until he came across a clearing, this was the location he needed to go. Whatever he was sensing was close by, he could feel it right on top of him. Igris perked up, why was he hearing music, and the kind that sounded like one would be like in a meme? The former Blood Red commander continued to look around for a few seconds, but then something very massive came crashing into the ground which caused a shockwave throughout the area that Igris was currently in. He used his armored gloves to blood the gust of wind that was rushing over his shadowy form, finding it difficult to keep himself on his own bloody feet. However, he wasn't just gonna let some wind get the best of him, he faced many more terrible things when he was alive, and even then he was able to bear through them all. When the winds calmed themselves, Igris was greeted by a massive dust cloud that slowly began to fade away by the second. As the cloud fully vanished from the knight's view, his eyes widened as he saw a massive crater right before him, and it was unlike anything he had ever seen before in his time while alive. The expression on Igris's face said it all, clearly plastered on his very being which said, what the hell? If anyone was with him, they would have the same reaction as Igris cause who would expect to see such a thing in their entire life. As Igris stared at the massive hole before him, something soon rose from the darkness, and that was a massive hand that slapped the ground and caused the earth beneath it to shatter. The former blood red commander watched in shock and awe as something or rather someone very big rose from the darkness of the crater. That someone was a middle-aged man who cuts an imposing figure due to his extreme height, which Igris believed around to be 710 centimeters, and the bulk of his muscles, making him dwarf a normal human. Overly top-heavy in build, he has a well-muscled torso with wide-set shoulders, thick arms, and somewhat out-of-proportion legs, far less heavily built than his arms yet about the same length, with his feet much tinier than his hands. On top the man's head was a massive pair of grey-white sharp-pointed horns coming out of its sides, curving slightly to the front, then upward. He had a longish face with a heavy hairless brow ridge topping sharp, often bloodshot eyes, parent to small, yellower eyes, plus a hook nose and a large full-lipped mouth. He had black hair which consisted of an unruly, mostly swept back mane down to his mid-back, which forms distinctly flat rectangular locks of which some fall down near the front, over his ears, or jut upward. His facial hair was done in a wavy, waist-length Fu Manchu mustache that pairs with a spiked goatee across his chin. On the man's defined abs was a massive recessed X shape whose upper points reached to his pectoral, a tattoo of dull red segments resembling reptilian scales, individually bordered in orange, goes from Kaido's left pectoral down the front of his left arm, ending in correspondence to the wrist with a white traditionally shaped skull on the lower forearm. The man groaned as he placed a hand on his head, shaking it in annoyance. "Man. Damn, it looks like I survived again." Igris stared at the man who took out something from his waist. It appeared to be a container, and he started to drink from it. The knight narrowed his eyes as he could feel the sheer aura coming from him, and it was definitely stronger than his liege. Maybe he was the one. The one that can help him grow stronger. As the man finished drinking, he sighed. "Man. I know you're there." This surprised Igris. How the hell did he sense him? The former blood red commander was being as silent as possible. He watched as the man looked over at him, glaring at the knight. "Man. What the hell do you want?" Igris narrowed his eyes as he took out his sword and got into a fighting position. The man shook his head in annoyance as he stood up from where he was sitting. "Man. Alright, let's get this over with." Chapter 2. King of the Beast. Third person POV. To summarize his entire life, he was a man who was desperately looking for a place to die. He had an eventful life, he tasted defeat around 7 times, and on 18 separate occasions, he had been captured by enemies. He spent quite some time as a prisoner, suffering through torture again and again. However, much to his own annoyance, nothing so far has been able to kill him, and that is what he doesn't like. No matter what he tried, he just wouldn't die because he was so powerful. His own skin was so tough that not even the sharpest of weapons like swords, spears, or even axes could reel a dent in him. Sure, there were other kinds of ways that he could die. But not even those would work because of how strong he was, name it, and he would have surely experienced it at some point in his life. Being burned alive, he's experienced that, and unfortunately, he was immune to high temperatures. Drowning, unfortunately, due to his large size, his body developed into giving him large lungs, so he could survive, so he basically sat at the bottom of an ocean for hours. Why an ocean? Well, because of his massive size, there was no lake, river, or pond that could fit him. Being electrocuted, well, because of his tough skin, he's immune to things such as electricity or being paralyzed. There was nothing on the planet that could kill him. Hell, he couldn't even kill himself by falling from a height of 30,000 feet in the air. Now some may be wondering, who in their right mind would do all of this and try to kill themselves? Well, that would be none other than the strongest creature in the entire world. King of the Beast, Kaido. Kaido had made a name for himself, feared as one of the strongest creatures to ever live within the supernatural world, only being topped by those such as the heavenly dragons, Drake and Albion, plus the 2 dragon gods, Office and Great Red. Besides those 4 beings, Kaido was the strongest creature in the entire world. Sure, there were also the many gods that resided in other places, but no one had ever seen them or Kaido face off with each other, so it is unknown if he is stronger or weaker than the gods. What species he was is quite unknown. Some believe that he is a member of an ancient race that was long extinct, or he was simply using a quote-unquote human form, and he was something that the supernatural already knew about. He was a monster and a tyrant that has conquered many factions and defeated an army of 1,000 in one attack. He was also a father, but he wasn't really the best when it came to that. Maybe that is another reason why he desires to end his own life, to either free himself or his child from the burden of existing. Kaido narrowed his eyes at Igris, who held his massive sword in front of him. In the King of the Beast's hand was a massive black spiked club, the weapon that he has had for ages now. "Kaido. Who are you, creature of the shadows?" Igris didn't reply as he narrowed his eyes at Kaido. The former blood red commander knew that the chances of him defeating such a monster would be impossible. However, he had to do this for his liege. He had to become stronger, and he failed to defend him during his battle with Sun Wukong, despite giving his own master a hard time when he was still alive. Kaido sighed in annoyance. Kaido. What a pain, I'll just end this quickly then. The two stared off at each other for a good couple of minutes, neither making a single move as silence filled the air around the two. Well, it looked like nothing was happening, in reality they both were actually fighting, but in their own minds. It was a way that warriors to determine what their opponent would do, it was basically an entire battle happening within their heads while their bodies did nothing. Kaido placed his weapon in his other hand as it sparked lighting. Kaido. Alright then, it's time. In a split second, both Kaido and Igris charged toward each other. The massive monster swung first, but the knight was able to dodge the attack in time. The attack did cause some destruction to the landscape which shocked Igris. The only other beings who were able to cause such destruction were Sun Wukong and Drake. Just how many beings had the power to level cities? Like seriously, just how many beings were there that could cause such destruction? This was not normal, there was absolutely no way that this was a normal thing in the supernatural world. Urja swung his sword at Kaido's leg, but to his shock, it simply bounced off when it made contact with his skin. The king of the beast chuckled as a small grin grew on his face. Kaido. Did you really think that would work against me? He raised his weapon and brought it down on Igris, who barely blocked it as the ground shattered. Igris was now in a very terrible situation, and the fight had only just begun. Why the hell did he decide to challenge who could possibly be the most powerful creature in the entire familiar forest? Like seriously, of all the things he had to go and pick a fight with, it just had to be this dude of all things. Kaido. Oh. You blocked it. Kaido raised his weapon to bring down another strike. Igris took this chance to quickly move out of the way before Kaido did his own attack. The knight then threw his weapon at the king foe the beast, who simply moved his head to the left, causing the massive blade to miss his head and land in the ground. Letting out a small chuckle, Kaido had to admit that if he were any other being that something like that would have taken him by surprise. However, he wasn't like any other being because he possessed something that was supposed to be lost to time itself, something that not even Lucifer, God, the four great Satans, or even beings such as the dragon gods had. An ability that was invisible to the naked eye, something that he and only he could see. That power was none other than Haki. Haki was a mysterious power that allows the user to utilize their own spiritual energy for various purposes. It can be used to sense people's spiritual energy and predict their actions, give the user a protective coating of spiritual energy, and, for a certain group of chosen ones, overpower the willpower of others. All living beings in the world are capable of learning Haki, however, most people do not notice it or fail to awaken it. The first was Busoshoku Haki or armament Haki. It allowed the user to use their own spiritual energy as armor to defend against attacks, as well as make their own attacks more potent. An advanced level of Busoshoku allows the user to emit the armament a short distance without a medium. And finally, a higher grade of advanced Busoshoku allows the user to make the emitted armament flow into a target's body and destroy it from the inside out. The next was Kenbun Shoku or observation Haki. This gave the user a sixth sense of the world around them, allowing them to sense the presence, strength, and emotions of other people. It also grants limited precognitive abilities, allowing the user to sense their opponent's intentions and predict their actions and attacks before they happen. If trained well enough, an advanced level of Kenbun Shoku allows the user to actually foresee a short period into the future. The final and most powerful of all the Haki was none other than Hashoku or Conqueror's Haki. This type of Haki allowed the user to unleash their own willpower to overpower the will of others. This results in victims being mentally overwhelmed by the user, with particularly weak-willed foes instantly losing consciousness. Hashoku is a very rare form of Haki that only 1 in several million people are born with the ability to use. Most people who can use Haki tend to have one type that they are better at and, as a result, focus on training and fighting with that type primarily. However, a person can improve their abilities with all the types of Haki, it just requires more work. Kaido can recall a few battles he had where his opponents either had 1 or 2 Haki, mainly the ones that allowed the user to create a protective coating and allowed them to predict their enemy's next move. But only a select few possessed the one that has been called by numerous names, such as Color of the Supreme King, Conqueror's Spirit, King's Will and such. He could recall the ones he fought against, the ones that possessed all 3. During those battles, Kaido felt something that he didn't think he would ever feel in a battle: excitement. He fully believed that emotion was lost to him cause he had grown so powerful, so strong, and feared that nothing could faze him anymore. And there was one man that gave him a rough time and made him feel the excitement in their battle. He was none other than Monkey D. Luffy. He didn't think much of him. Kaido thought that he was just another weakling that was trying to take him on. However, the king of the beast learned one thing during his many years old being alive: never underestimate your opponent, cause Monkey D. Luffy was stronger than he realized. To take things worse, he was a part of the D family, which was something that he has seen quite a bit over the many years he was alive, and it was strange. Why the hell were there people with D in their name? Where did they come from? What was their purpose? All of those were questions that Kaido knew he would never receive answers to, and he didn't care about that. Why would he care about something so little like that? He decided to shake those questions away and focus on the battle right now. Kaido watched as Igris held out his hand, confusing him until he sensed something, and quickly moved his head as the knight's weapon came flying past his head and into the former commander's hand. Kaido? What the hell was that? How did he do that? Igris, seeing he was distracted, jumped to his eye level and tried to slash him, but Kaido dodged in time, and he got a cut on his cheek. Kaido gritted his teeth. Kaido? How the hell is he doing that? My hockey should have predicted that. Was it because I wasn't focusing? Growling, Kaido grabbed Igris' blade and lifted both it and the knight into the air with absolute ease. He smirked as he tossed the shadow soldier into some trees and he went through them. Due to how strong Kaido was, Igris went quite far, straight through nearly 10 trees. Kaido? I'll admit you caught me off guard, but I won't let that happen again. Igris slowly brought himself to his feet as he glared at Kaido. He got lucky that he wasn't alive, otherwise he would have died from going through those trees. But that didn't mean that he couldn't feel pain. He could feel every single part of it, and he could clearly say that both that and getting stabbed in the eyes were the most painful thing he had ever experienced in his entire life. Igris needed to think of a plan to beat Kaido in order to become strong and serve his master. But what could he do? Kaido apparently knows what move he is gonna make even before he does it, and his own weapon barely leaves a scratch on the bastard. This was gonna be one tough battle. He hoped that his liege was having a better time with whatever he was doing. Speaking of the main protagonist. Meanwhile with Issei, Rias, and Sun Wukong were still walking through the familiar forest as they were completely unaware of what was happening on the other side. Well, that was a lie since Issei was getting notifications that his mana was decreasing a bit. If he was not wrong, the only reason something like that would happen is if one of his shadow soldiers were taking damage. He didn't send out any of his shadows, so one of them must have snuck off, and the Monkey King already knew cause he's Wukong. Issei. Issei didn't want to ask Drake who it was since Rias was here. The brown-haired boy didn't want to reveal his power to her just yet because he wants to grow stronger by himself. Don't get him wrong, he didn't want to hurt her feelings because she was a very beautiful young girl, but he just had his own secrets that he still needed to figure out. Such as who made the system. Why did they choose him? What was the purpose of it? There were many other secrets that needed to be solved, but he was sure that he would figure it all out in time, hopefully, cause if he doesn't, then he would literally kill someone, and he doesn't care who. But he has a feeling that the system might have something to do with his family. Issei. I wonder, is the system the reason that Dad left? This thought filled Issei's mind as he and his two friends continued their walk through the forest. His father did leave him and his mother several years ago, and he hasn't stopped wondering why, but at some point, he just stopped trying to figure out why because it was a waste of time. He had other things to focus on, such as school and his mother. He wanted to help his mother with everything he can, since she did everything and made sacrifices for him, as well as raising him all by herself. But he knew that he was far too weak to help her. No matter what he thought of doing, he knew that it wouldn't be enough. He needed to give himself and his mother the life that they have dreamt of, a life that they would enjoy and not have to worry about. Back with Igris. Igris was not having a good time against Kaido. The king of the beast was basically decimating the knight in combat because of his immense strength, size, and the damn ability that he possessed. He couldn't land a blow on him because when he tries, he either blocks or dodges the attack, and his own weapon barely even scratches him. Kaido. Thunder Bagua. He swung his mace toward Igris as lightning sparked from it. Igris tried to dodge and he did, but something else happened. The attack was only a fake out as Kaido struck the knight in the chest with a spiked club. He was sent flying back and he went crashing through a bunch of more trees. No doubt about it, Kaido was extremely powerful, and now the chances of him defeating him were nearly reaching 0%, and when that happens, well, let's just say that he was glad that he was only a shadow. Kaido laughed as he slowly approached the fallen knight. Kaido. I have to say, you fought well for a mere shadow. Igris remained silently as he slowly got up, glaring at the king of the beast. Kaido. You really don't speak, do you? Igris wasn't really a man of words. He believed that actions spoke louder than words, so he never talked when he was alive. Even back then, before he met Issei, he never once spoke a word because he protected his master in complete silence. The former blood red commander can't really remember much about who he once served. Was it a king? A queen? Were there children? He didn't know, but what he did know is that he served whoever sat on the throne with utmost loyalty, and he shall do the same thing for his current master. He won't fail him. He will no longer be weak. Igris had to become stronger. He had to. For the sake of his master and for himself. And he would gladly do anything to protect his master, even giving up his existence and life for him. Igris slowly raised his sword and pointed it at Kaido, who was surprised that the knight was still able to fight. He had basically crushed him in this one-sided battle, and yet he still wanted more. Kaido. Such determination. Kaido recognized Igris's determination and his will to fight. He was like many of his opponents, including Monkey D. Luffy, that had the same will and determination as Igris. A small chuckle escaped from his mouth as he shook his head. Kaido. I have to say, you are very determined, little shadow. Igris didn't say anything as Kaido smirked. It didn't matter how determined he wasn't gonna win this battle. The king of the beast wasn't even sure why the foolish knight decided to pick a fight with him in the first place, though there was a small part of Kaido that hoped that Igris would grant him his death, which won't happen. Kaido. I think it's time to end this. Kaido's eyes started to glow red as he began to use the most powerful and dangerous haki to ever exist, the one that allowed him to unleash his will upon others and force them to their knees. However, a massive shockwave happened between them and Kaido was surprised. He couldn't believe it. There was no possible way that a shadow of all things would possess something such as that. It was unheard of. Never in Kaido's entire existence would he believe that something like this would be possible. Sure, he knew that things were different than what they used to be all those years ago, but still, to think that a mere shadow soldier would possess Conqueror's haki is just a shocker. Kaido. How the hell? Back with Issei, Rias, and Sun Wukong, they felt that shockwave from the other side of the forest. Rias. What the hell was that? Issei. I am not sure. Issei narrowed his eyes. What the hell was Igris doing on his end? Looking over at Sun Wukong, he could see that the demon wasn't fazed by the shockwave as much as Rias was, which made sense due to the major gap between their power. The brown-haired boy knew that he was somewhere in the middle of them. While he wasn't freaking out because of the shockwave, it was still a surprise. Sun Wukong. Should we go and check it out? Issei was about to reply, but he soon perked up as he heard something coming from a nearby bush. This caused him to quickly summon both his daggers. Rias and Sun Wukong prepared themselves for battle as well. The trio stared at the bush as they narrowed their eyes, waiting to see what would come out of it. They soon got their answer, and it sure was a surprise. Rias. It can't be. Sun Wukong. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Issei. First of all. He looks at Wukong. Issei. Never say that again. Sun Wukong. No promises. Issei sighed and shook his head. Issei. Anyways, why are you two freaking out? It's a fox. Wolf. Rias. That's Amaterasu. Issei perked up as he looked at the crimson red-haired devil girl. Issei. Wait, isn't that one of the many Japanese legends? Rias nodded her head. Issei was surprised to find Amaterasu of all being in a place like this, though for some reason Issei can't help but feel like it isn't that because of the pink and white thing and the horns on it. Last time he checked, Amaterasu wasn't known to have either of those on him or her, or rather it. Issei. The boy watched as Amaterasu approached him and looked up at him. Issei remained calm and stared down at the white fur wolf. The two looked each other in the eyes as Issei held out his hand towards the legendary mythical beasts. Rias and Sun Wukong waited to see what would happen, but to their surprise the mythical beast allowed Issei to pet it on the head. This was something that has never happened before, well, not before their own eyes. Wukong has heard rumors of the mythical creature and knew that he could easily defeat it in battle. Hell, he could do it before he became all-powerful. Although the only reason he probably hasn't fought it is cause he had to defend a stupid monk who was super blind. He can recall the countless times the monkey demon had to save his life and no one else helped. Talk about annoying, but what's done is done. Issei. Hey, Rias, Wukong. Rias. Why yeah, Issei. Sun Wukong. He looked at them both as he continued to pet the Amaterasu. Issei. You know why something like this would be in this place? Rias. I honestly don't know. Issei. Really? Rias. Yeah, I didn't even think an Amaterasu would be in this place. Sun Wukong. She might have come here for a reason. Issei raised an eyebrow. Issei. For what reasons? Sun Wukong shrugged his shoulders. Sun Wukong. Not sure. The Amaterasu started nuzzling Issei's leg, causing the brown-haired boy to chuckle a little as Rias smiles at the cute sight before her. She had to admit that this was very adorable, and she thought that her own familiar was cute, well, in both her human form and her small bat form. Rias. Oh, looks like she likes you. Issei let out a small chuckle. Issei. I guess she does. Sun Wukong. Looks like you found your familiar, Issei. Issei wasn't sure how to react to this. He came to this place just wanting to look around and see some other supernatural creatures and beings. He didn't expect to actually get a familiar like he already has Uruchi, and she's well herself. Speaking of her, Issei really needs to figure her out because he knows that she is keeping some sort of secret from him, but he wasn't sure what it was though. But back to the point at hand, Issei didn't want this. However, he gets the feeling that the little fella before him won't leave him alone unless he takes her with him. Issei. Hey, would you like to come with me? Issei watched as Amaterasu wagged her tail, making Rias giggle. Rias. I think she said yes. Issei playfully rolled his eyes as a small smile grew on his face. Issei. Well then, I guess you're my familiar. Sun Wukong. So what you gonna name her? Rias looked at the monkey demon, raising an eyebrow. Rias. What's wrong with Amaterasu? Sun Wukong. Nothing is, but I think this girl would want a different name. Issei fell silent as he stared at the mythical creature. What should he call her? He could tell that it was a girl because both Rias and Sun Wukong was saying that it was a female. It shouldn't be too hard since he already named Yoruichi, but then again that just so happened to be her actual name. As Issei was thinking of a name, he soon recalled a certain game he used to play. In that game, there was a very good weapon that made his jaw drop from how fast it was. A small smirk grew on his face as he looked at the mythical creature. Issei. How about Yamato? Amaterasu's tail wagged repeatedly as Issei chuckled. Issei. I'll take that as a yes. Rias. Yamato, that sounds like a very nice name. Sun Wukong. Issei looked at Yamato and smiled. Issei. Well, it's official. You're my familiar now. Yamato's tail wagged as she nuzzled Issei's leg. Issei chuckled and pats her head. Suddenly, there was another shockwave that nearly knocked everyone off their feet as they saw a massive dust cloud rise into the air. Issei narrowed his eyes. Just what the hell was Igris doing over there? Like seriously, what could he possibly be fighting? Issei. Igris, what the hell are you doing over there? Rias. Should we be concerned about that? Sun Wukong shook his head. Sun Wukong. Nah, I'm sure it's fine. Issei. Yeah. Issei looked into the distance worried for his soldier. He knew that Igris was powerful, but Issei can't help but feel like whatever he was battling might be beyond his capability. Back with Igris. The former blood-red commander dodged an attack from Kaido and jumped back as a tail covered in blue scales struck the ground before him. Igris narrowed his eyes as Kaido chuckled in amusement. Kaido. I have to say you have shown skills beyond my expectations. Before Igris was Kaido, but his appearance was now completely different. He looked like a hybrid between a man and a blue or azure dragon. His arms and body were covered in scales. His face appeared to be more dragon-like, and he had a long dragon tail with a black flame-like spike on the tip. He looked like a hybrid between a man and a blue or azure dragon. His arms and body were covered in scales. His face appeared to be more dragon-like, and he had a long dragon tail with a black flame-like spike on the tip. Kaido. I never expected for you to make me use my hybrid form. Igris continued to remain silent as both he and Kaido charged at each other. They swung their weapons at each other, which clashed and caused another shockwave around them. The force of the shockwave was more powerful than the previous ones. It caused the very ground around them to be torn apart by the force. Kaido grinned as Igris remained silent as black lightning with red outlines sparked around the two monsters, but the ground wasn't the only thing that was affected by their attack. Something else was also affected, something that completely exceeded expectations, and that was the sky. The clash between Kaido's spiked club and Igris's sword had caused the very sky itself to split apart. The clash between Kaido's spiked club and Igris's sword had caused the very sky itself to split apart. Kaido. Ha 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 ha. I like you. You're fun, warrior of the shadows. The two soon stopped what they were doing and jumped back a couple of feet. Kaido panted slightly as he continued to hold his grin. Never in his entire life would he believe that another being would make him do this much. In any one-on-one battle everyone bets on Kaido because he was the king of the beast, the most powerful creature in the entire world. However, it looks like he was wrong. It appears that he has once again met someone who has given him a challenge to make things better. Igris also possessed the same haki that he, the most powerful of them all. Kaido let out a chuckle before it turned into a hearty laugh. Kaido. This is the most fun I've ever had. He soon pointed at Igris. Kaido. Warrior of shadows. I acknowledge as one of the greatest foes I have ever fought. This surprised Igris. He didn't think that he would ever be acknowledged for something like this. The knight watched as Kaido stabbed his head into the ground before sitting down. He then took out his flask and started to drink from it. Kaido. That's good booze. He then looked over at Igris who was confused. Weren't they just battling a minute ago? Kaido. Listen well, warrior of shadows. This caused Igris to perk up. Kaido. That ability you unknowingly used is called Conqueror's Haki. It allows you to force your will upon others, and if they are weaker, then they shall fall to your feet. This surprised Igris. That power he just used earlier was Conqueror's Haki. Kaido. If you are to master that power, you must train very hard and win no matter what. Igris knew he was right, and he knew mastering this new power he was given won't be easy, but he won't give up that easily for the sake of his master and himself. The former blood-red commander narrowed his eyes as he placed his weapon on his back. He then gave Kaido a nod of acknowledgement, and the hybrid dragon gave the same to the knight. The two may have been enemies during their entire fight, but right now they don't see each other like that. They now see each other as something better, something more than mere opponents. Rivals. No, it was something else and Kaido knew exactly what that was. Kaido. One legend to another. Kaido stood up and looked down at Igris who remained where he stood, staring up at the massive king of the beast. Kaido. I hope that one day we will meet each other again. Igris nodded his head. This made Kaido chuckle as he turned and started to walk off. The former blood red commander watched the hybrid walk off into the forest. Due to his immense size, he was sticking above the trees, but that didn't matter to Igris, since both he and Kaido now respected each other and their abilities. Igris turned to see Issei approaching him with Sun Wukong as Riaz was talking to the familiar master. The knight quickly bowed to his liege. He didn't think that he would be watching the battle. Issei. It's good to see you too, but you might wanna hide now before Riaz see you. Igris nodded his head and returned to his liege's shadow. Sun Wukong looked at the brown-haired boy with a raised eyebrow. Sun Wukong. You still not planning on showing Riaz or any other devils your abilities? Issei. No, not yet at least. Sun Wukong shrugged his shoulders. Sun Wukong. Alright then, whatever you say. Issei. Say, Wukong, do you by any chance have a familiar? Sun Wukong fell silent as he began to think about that one. Did he have a familiar? He doesn't think so, since when he became all-powerful he never got the chance to do that. Plus, why would he need one? He could literally take on gods and defeat them. Sun Wukong. I don't think so. Issei. Ah, I see. Sun Wukong. Why do you ask? Issei. Just curious. Issei turned to the destruction before him. Whatever Igris was fighting against must have been very powerful to cause such destruction. This was concerning to Issei because the only other being he knew that could cause such a mess was Sun Wukong. Maybe this was the work of some other god-level being. Issei. Let's get back to Riaz. Sun Wukong nodded as he and his rival began to walk away from the destruction that Igris and Kaido caused. To see such destruction, Issei couldn't help but be remembered that dream or rather vision that he had. He needed to grow stronger, much stronger than he currently was, and he knew exactly how he was gonna do that. Issei was gonna grind in every single dungeon he obtained from the system. He would take on every and all challenges that came his way. He didn't care who got in his way, devils, angels, fallen angels, dragons, gods, or even other versions of himself. The brown-haired boy shall rise above all of them and discover the truth. He shall become the strongest hunter that there was. After all, hunters are born to hunt. Issei. Well then. Issei. It's time to hunt. Unknown to Issei, he was being watched by a mysterious figure who couldn't help but grow a small smile as he watched the boy go. You are becoming more powerful with each level up. I guess it was a good idea for my old friend to make that system. The figure soon let out a small sigh. Protect him, Drake, protect my son until the day comes that he and I finally meet each other, face to face. But that, the person created a red portal and walked through it. When he fully entered it, the portal closed behind him. Chapter 3. Red Gate. Third-person POV. Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, was currently sitting on his couch, clicking through several channels as he let out a sigh of annoyance. He loves the human world. It was like the best idea he ever had to come and live there, cause humans have so many interesting things yet they don't seem to be able to make a good TV show or movie. In fact, the only movie he has seen so far that comes close to being good is Puss in Boots. The Last Wish, cause the animation in that movie was top tier. Maybe better than any other movie that was made last year. There are some that even Azazel doesn't want to remember. You seem to be bored. Azazel perks up as he turned his head toward the voice only to see a red portal in his living room. The leader of the fallen deadpanned as his old friend comes walking through the portal. Azazel. Still using red portals. The man crossed his arms as he raised an eyebrow. What's wrong with red? It's a wonderful color. Azazel. Nothing, but when the war starts you may want to change to a different color. We can't have our allies thinking you're one of the monarchs. The man sighed and shook his head. Man. I know. Azazel. So where were you? You left and haven't come back for a few hours. The man fell silent for a few seconds, not sure if he should tell his old friend where he was. But soon enough he let out a small sigh and leaned up against a wall, putting a bit too much pressure on it and causing the wall to crack. Azazel. My wallpaper. Man. I was watching my son. Azazel. Issei. The man nodded his head. Man. Yeah, I followed him into the familiar forest and he got himself a pet now. This gained Azazel's attention. He didn't think that it would be possible for a human to get a familiar. Normally, only devils could go there and get one, and sometimes that was rare if they even managed to convince one to become their familiar. Azazel. Really now? The man nodded his head. Man. Yeah. Azazel. What familiar did he get? Man. I believe it's the daughter of the king of the beast. Azazel. Yamato. The man nodded his head. Man. Yeah, but I personally don't like it. Azazel. Let me guess why. Is it because Kaido is one of the generals of the Dragon Monarch? Man. That, and I'm afraid that she might be used as a spy to get information on my son. Azazel. Well, it's not like your son is that powerful. Hearing that, the man couldn't help but chuckle, which got Azazel's attention. Azazel. What? What's so funny? Man. My son may not be powerful yet, he will surpass us, and that includes you. Hearing this filled Azazel with excitement. The governor of the fallen grew a savage grin as he crushed his remote and his eyes glowed, full of excitement and hunger for battle. Azazel. Ha ha ha. Yes. I can't wait for that to happen. Man. I swear, sometimes I feel like you're secretly a monarch or something. Azazel. Oh come on. You know I haven't fought a strong challenge in a very long time, man. I know, just don't go off being Kakabiel or something. Azazel gritted his teeth when he heard that name. Kakabiel was the name of a fellow fallen angel, and one that Azazel doesn't like, because he is nothing but a complete psychopath who wants to destroy everything for a simple fight. The difference between him and Azazel is that Kakabiel actively tries to start things, while Azazel lets the opponent challenge him instead. Azazel. Please don't compare me to that idiot. Man. When was the last time you checked up on him? The leader of the fallen angels sighed. Man. Been a while, but from what I've been told he's being up to something in secret, man. And are you gonna do something about it? Azazel shook his head. Azazel. Nah, I'll let your son deal with him. The man deadpanned. Man. You know, for someone who was given power by those who created your father. You're extremely lazy. Azazel smirked. Azazel. That's me. All day, every day. The man let out a small sigh of annoyance, which caused Azazel to chuckle as he patted his friend's back. Azazel. Don't worry, old friend. When the time comes, you know I'll be there to help in the upcoming war. Those monarchs won't know what hit them. The man chuckled. Man. You're right, and maybe after this war, I can be with my family without having to hide. Azazel. Yeah, that sounds nice. Both the man and the leader of the fallen angels started to laugh like the good friends they were, despite sometimes getting on each other's nerves, and went that they were very close friends, the greatest of friends one would say. Azazel has always had his bro's back, and he knows that he would do the same thing for him, although they both still have their own secrets that they don't want to tell each other. That isn't so bad, everyone has their own secrets that they want to keep well, secret. However, there are some secrets that need to be told, or else they will end up hurting someone or themselves. Man. You better take good care of my son, help him become powerful Ashborn. Meanwhile with Issei. Guo Academy, it was an average day as students were just arriving to the school to start the day. Behind some nearby trees, Sun Wukong, Ria's Gremory, and Issei Haidu appeared in a blink of an eye, only for the brown-haired boy to fall face first on the ground. Both the devil girl and the monkey king blinked as they weren't sure if they should help their friend or just start bursting out laughing like idiots. Then again, they probably don't want to piss him off. Issei. Ow. Issei got up and rubbed his face. Issei. I'm gonna be feeling that for a while. Sun Wukong rubbed the back of his neck. Sun Wukong. Sorry bro, I guess my landing was off. Issei simply waved it off, he didn't blame the Monkey King for that. In fact, if it was anyone's fault it was his own, because he should have been used to getting teleported by now. After all, he has gone through so many portals that are made from the system. Then again, those are portals and not actual teleportation, so maybe there is a difference between the two that Issei doesn't know about. Rias. Well, that was something. Issei. Yeah, I guess it was. Sun Wukong got a phone call, and he paled because it was his wife Danahan. Sun Wukong. Oh, no. He then answered it and held it to his ear. Sun Wukong. Hello. Dahan. Where the fuck are you? Both Issei and Rias perked up from the sudden shout as they looked at Sun Wukong. Surprisingly, he looked as pale as ghost. Ria's jaw nearly dropped to the ground because it was Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, and one of the most powerful beings in the entire universe. Issei was surprised, but he wasn't as shocked as Rias was because he had been told by Wukong that he had some wives, so the boy guessed that the person on the phone was one of his wives. Sun Wukong. Honey, I told you. I'm with my friend, you know. One I told you about last night. Issei deadpanned. Issei. The one whose house you broke into. Sun Wukong. Hey. Your mom let me in. Issei sighed, shook his head. Issei. Of course she did. Dahan. You better get your ass here until tomorrow night, or I will personally strap you on the bed and you won't leave it for months. Sun Wukong. Dan. Not in front of my friends. And not in front of Kenji. They heard another female voice, and it was Sun Wukong's adoptive daughter, Tijin Park, who was the daughter of the hated man, Mujin Park. Sun Wukong. Oh, hey Tijin. How are you doing, my little princess? Issei. You have a daughter? Sun Wukong rubbed the back of his head and chuckled, nodding his head. Sun Wukong. Yeah, I have one. But she isn't my biological daughter, she's actually adopted. Rias. You adopted a child? The Monkey King nodded his head, surprising the heiress of the Gremory household. Both she has heard the stories of the Monkey Demon, he who gained immortality through several means, yet she has never heard that he has a family or children. Rias. Wow, just wow. Sun Wukong. Is it that much of a shocker? Issei. Yes, cause it's you. Sun Wukong. What's that meant to mean? Issei facepalmed. Issei. Dumbus, you're Sun Wukong. You've never been known to have family, other than some group of monkeys who took you as their king. Sun Wukong. Oh. Issei sighed as he looked to his left, and a screen appeared before him, showing the brown-haired boy his stats. Name. Issei Haidu. Job. Shadow Monarch. Title. Conqueror of Adversity, +1. Level. 56. Health points HP. 16,895 16,895. Magic MP. 1769 Fatigue. 0. Strength STR. 82, plus 20. Vitality Vit. 66. Agility Agile. 66, plus 20. Intelligence Int. 67, plus 25. Sense. 66, plus 20. Available points. 0. Physical damage reduction. 20%, plus 15. Issei. After so much, I still know that I'm very weak and powerless if any god or stronger supernatural being comes after me. Rias. You okay, Issei? Issei. Huh? Issei snapped out of his thoughts as he looked at Rias. He guessed he was too focused on his stats that he started to act strange around Wukong and Rias. He didn't want to worry them because they wouldn't understand his situation. Actually, did Sun Wukong even know the power that Issei had? If he did, then the monkey demon would have been staring at the system screen along with Issei, but if Issei recalls the small chat that he and Wukong had, he didn't see it. The screen appeared then and Wukong didn't seem to react to it, so maybe even godly level beings such as Wukong can't see the system. How does that even make sense? Issei. What did you say, Rias? Rias. I asked if you are okay. Issei. Oh, yeah. I'm doing alright. Tijin. Mom. Kenji is gone. Sun Wukong and a Han. What? Issei felt something tug his pants, and he looked down to see a kid that looks exactly like Sun Wukong. Issei blinked in surprise. How the hell did this kid just show up so fast? Issei. I think I found him. Sun Wukong looked and saw his son standing beside Issei's leg. Sun Wukong. Kenji. The Monkey King picked up the small boy and held him in his hands. Sun Wukong. Why are you out here? You're scaring your mother. The boy just touched his father's nose in response, making Sun Wukong deadpan. Sun Wukong. You're so lucky that you're cute, otherwise I would do something to do. Rias. Kwai. Issei sighed and facepalmed. Why the hell was he doing here? He should really get to class, but he still has a few minutes before class actually starts, plus there are still students and teachers showing up, so he has time hopefully. Issei. Anyways, Wukong. Me and Rias have class in a few minutes. Sun Wukong. I understand. Rias walked up to Kenji and started to tickle him under his chin. Rias. Oh, you're so cute. Kenji giggled in response as many of the girls gushed out how cute Kenji is and complimented that Sun Wukong was a great big brother. Issei rolled his eyes playfully as he turned and started to walk off. He didn't mind the small child, but he has more important things to do at the moment, like get to class, or else he was gonna be in huge trouble from not only his teacher, but his mother as well. Sun Wukong. Later, Issei. Sun Wukong walked away with Kenji as Rias followed after Issei. Rias. That was such a cute child. Issei nodded his head. Issei. Yeah, it actually was a cute kid. As both Issei and Rias made their way through the gate, all eyes were instantly on them, and this resulted in some whispers among the students, with some being good and some being bad. Girl 1. Is Rias senpai with Haidu. Girl 2. Whoa, they look good together. Girl 3. So awesome. Girl 4. I so wanna fuck Rias senpai. Suddenly, Rias felt a shiver run down her spine which confused her. Why the hell would she feel something like that when she was at school? Sure, the students were looking at her and Issei, but none of them ever have any negative emotions toward her. In fact, they basically treat her like she was a goddess, which was ironic since he was actually a devil. Rias. Why do I feel that pervs said they wanna fuck me? That was only the female side, the male side was much different. Boy 1. Damn it, Haidu got to her first. Boy 2. Haidu, you bastard. Boy 3. I'm gay. Both. We know Bob and we're proud of you. Boy 4. Come on, babe. We got class. Bob. Okay, San. Both. That was so adorable. Issei sweat dropped from what he had just overheard. What the fuck? Like literally, what the fuck did he just hear right now? Kuo was really a place full of weirdness. He swears that it may turn out to be Gravity Falls or something. Rias. Well, I better go to my class. See you later, Issei. She kissed his cheek before walking away. Issei watched as Rias walked away. The sudden kiss shocked everyone in the area because they weren't expecting something like that to happen. Issei. Issei. Huh? Issei turned his head to the familiar voices, only to be greeted by a dropkick from none other than Mitsuda and Motohama. This sudden attack caught Issei off guard as he was sent back a few feet from it, causing the boy to groan. Issei. Ow, what the? Ow. Mitsuda. You traitor. Issei. What? Motohama. How did you do it? Issei raised an eyebrow. What the hell were they talking about? How did he do what? More importantly, when the hell did the two idiots learn to dropkick someone like that? Issei. What the fuck are you two talking about? Mitsuda. You betrayed your comrades of the Loser Alliance. Issei was confused until he figured it out. Issei. Was it about Rias kissing my cheek? Both. Yes. How did you do it? Issei sighed as he stood up and started to dust himself off. Issei. Don't ask me, I'm just as surprised as you two are. Motohama. Liar. Are you two dating? Issei deadpanned as he gestured to himself in the direction Ria's went, then back to himself. Issei. Do you really think that me of all people is capable of dating Ria's Gremory? Mitsuda. Yes. Look at you. You're cool, handsome no homo, and look like a bad boy. Girls dig those types of men. Issei. Then why don't I see the other girls in the school drooling over my looks? Also you do realize the kiba is still a thing, right? Mitsuda. Yeah. Issei just shook his head as he turned and started to walk away from his two idiotic friends who started jazzing after him, trying to get their comrade to spill the beans about his relationship with Ria's Gremory. He liked the two boys, no homo, but they are very annoying at times to the point that Issei just wants to punch them in the face. However, he didn't have time for them. Issei had more important things to worry about, such as trying to find a way to become even stronger than he currently was, since he knew that he was gonna be facing more powerful things in the future. Issei. I wonder how Yurichi is doing. He figures that the woman should be alright, like all she has to do is not transform in front of his mother, and that's it. That shouldn't be too hard for Yurichi to handle. Then again, if memory serves Issei correctly, he asked Rias to send Yamato to his bedroom as well, since he didn't want the mythical creature to remain in the familiar forest, so Yurichi is probably freaking out a little bit. And he's imagining Yamato was jazzing her while his mother wasn't home, hopefully not making a mess. Issei sighed internally, if they make a mess then he was gonna have to clean it up. Issei. I fucking hope that isn't the case. After a very long walk, both Issei and his two friends entered the classroom. When they entered, they were greeted by their teacher, who was none other than the gorgeous Miss Scathach. When they entered, they were greeted by their teacher, who was none other than the gorgeous Miss Scathach. Scathach. Morning, you three. Issei. Morning, teach. Mitsuda. Morning, sensei. Motohama. Greetings, Scathach sensei. Scathach. Take your seats. Class is about to begin. The trio nodded their heads and walked toward their seats. Once they arrived at them, they sat down at their tables. Issei didn't really care about his knowledge when it comes to things in the human world, mainly cause he is more focused on things that are happening in the supernatural world. On top of that list is the system, for obvious reasons. But he feels like his teacher is hiding something, but he doesn't know why. Issei just felt a strange aura coming from her, which was weird because she doesn't appear to have any relations to the supernatural world. Issei. Maybe it's nothing. Time skip. School was over, the sun was slowly setting over the horizon, which changed a once bright blue sky to a deep orange color that made everything appear to be celebrating the season of fall. Issei sighed as he was slowly making his way out of the school grounds. In his hand was a strange key that he obtained from his daily quest. Item. Dungeon key. Level of difficulty. A. Type. Key. Sure, it looked like the regular dungeon keys that Issei had been getting, but for some reason, he was getting a dark feeling from the key, and the brown-haired boy did not like it one bit. He wants to become stronger, and while the key was only A rank, sometimes looks can be deceiving, and when that happens people usually die. Issei hasn't died well again anyways. Sure, he has come close to death numerous times, and each time he has come out on top because of luck and no skill. However, he was able to defeat Riser Phoenix with his skill alone. But he has to remember that since he has been leveling up a lot, so he's probably stronger than a lot of supernatural beings. Although, he knows that there are still more powerful beings out there. He needs to become stronger. If he has to take a huge risk, then he guess that is something he is willing to take. But he needs to make sure that he can't bring others into his problems, they won't understand anything that is happening. Issei. This is something I need to do myself, I gotta solo leave. Hey Issei. Issei's eyes widen, those voices Mitsuda and Motohama. Issei. You too. Mitsuda. You think we were gonna forget about the fact you and Rias shared a kiss? Issei deadpanned, was he really still going on about that? Like seriously? Why the fuck was he still going on about the fact that Rias kissed his cheek? Issei. Seriously, you're still complaining? Mitsuda. Yes. Motohama adjusted his glasses as he noticed a key in Issei's hand, confused cause he had never seen Issei with a key before. Motohama. Hey, what's that key? Issei. It's nothing. Wow, you three seem to be very good friends. Hearing the new voice caused the trio to perk up as they turned their heads in that direction. Both Motohama and Mitsuda eyes widen as the owner of the voice was Scathach. The woman held her bag in her hand, seemingly ready to head home as well, like the students as well. Issei. You gotta be kidding me. Scathach raised an eyebrow. Scathach. So? What with all this yelling and complaining? Issei. Suddenly, a screen appeared before Issei's view, and this one didn't have a good message for the boy. In fact, out of all the messages he has been given by the system, this one was easily the worst of them all. Warning. Error. Error. An error has occurred. Issei was confused, what was happening to the system? It has never done this before the past. Sure, it may have given him a quest out of nowhere like the time it told him to not go back to his perverted ways to become a devil, but this was the very first time that something like an error occurred. This didn't fill Issei with good emotions. If something was happening to the system, then this had to be connected to the strange dream or vision he had this morning. Issei. What the hell is happening? Warning. Red gate shall now appear. Repeat, red gate shall now appear. Issei. Wait, wow. Just then, black and red electricity appeared from the key which caused Issei to drop the object and hold his hand in pain. This shocked Mitsuda, Motohama and Scathach as they saw that the key had just done. Issei gritted his teeth in pain and annoyance. What the hell just happened? Why the fuck did the key just hurt him? Was it because of the message? What was a red gate? Motohama. Issei. Are you okay? Warning. Red gate appearing. Issei's eyes widen in shock and horror. The red gate was now appearing. This wasn't good since 3 people were looking at him. Issei. You 3, get back. Now. However, before the 3 could respond to the brown-haired boy's words, the key that was on the ground sparked with the same electricity just like before, and from it came a blue portal that Issei was familiar with. But that all soon changed as a crimson-red color slowly started to take over the portal, slowly sucking the 4 like a vacuum. Mitsuda. What's going on? Motohama. I don't know. Scathach's eyes widened as she tried to force herself from being sucked into the portal. She then looked over at Issei. Scathach. Mr. Haidu, what is going on? Issei gritted his teeth as he stared at the portal before him. This wasn't anything like the ones he has experienced before. It was moving wildly, like the waves in a raging storm out in the ocean. The pressure. The feeling. This shouldn't be happening, something is wrong. Either this was the work of the system trying to do something to the brown-haired boy, or the creator of the system is trying to test him once again. Issei. So this is. Issei. A red gate. Scathach heard what he said and she was confused. What was happening? Why was there a portal before them and how did Issei have knowledge of this? The woman can't help but wonder if he is the reason for this happening. Scathach. A red WH. Before the woman could finish her sentence, she and her students were sucked into the portal due to its immense pull. Both Mitsuda and Motohama screamed like girls as Issei gritted his teeth in anger, but they didn't have to wait long because the portal soon spat the 4 out somewhere else. Somewhere in the middle of a forest area that was covered in snow and in the middle of what could be described as the first stage of a blizzard. Issei quickly got up and charged toward the red gate, but before he could reach it the portal suddenly closed on the brown-haired boy. Issei. No. Issei growled and stomped on the ground. Issei. Damn it. Mitsuda. What the hell? Where are we? Motohama. I want to go home. Scathach remained silent as she looked at the enraged Issei who was gritting his teeth in anger, silently curing both the system and the creator for putting him and innocent people in this situation. He would have understood if it was only him, that was something the system liked to do to him. But this was something different. Issei. Great, just fucking great. Suddenly, a screen appeared before the already pissed off brown-haired boy. You have entered a red gate. Due to the conditions of the red gate, you are not allowed to leave until the boss is slain or the player is eliminated. Issei. Can't my luck get any worse? A day within the red gate is equivalent to 1 hour in the normal world. Issei's eyes widen in shock. A day within the gate is only an hour in real life. Does this mean that if Issei doesn't kill the boss and he and the other 3 remain within the red gate for like 24 hours, it would actually be 24 days within the red gate? The boy can't help but wonder if this is meant to be something like that time chamber from Dragon Ball. What was its name again? He knew it had the words time chamber within it. Issei. So, depending on how long it takes to kill the boss there is a chance we are here for a single day or several months. Haidu. He saw his teacher Scathach walking over. Issei. Yeah. What is it? Scathach. You are not any ordinary human, are you? Hearing this caused both Mitsuda and Motohama to look at their friend with expressions of shock and confusion. Issei. What makes you think that? Scathach. Because I know when I see one and I should know because I am no ordinary human either. This caught Issei's attention as he narrowed his eyes at the woman, both of them glowing with a menacing purple aura. Issei. What are you then? Scathach. Do you know someone else with my name? Issei. Yeah, the legendary Scathach in the Ulster cycle of Irish mythology. She is a legendary Scottish warrior woman and martial arts teacher who trains the legendary Ulster hero Cuchulainn in the arts of combat. Wait. You can't be. Scathach nodded her head as she glowed with a bright aura, causing the boys to cover their eyes for a moment before they uncovered them again and saw their teacher in a completely different outfit. The 2 pervs had perverted grins at the sight, but it turned to fear when Scathach glared at them and she turned to Issei who was stunned and speechless. Scathach. Shocked. Issei nodded his head. He's not gonna lie, this was a huge surprise to him. However, if he really thought about it deeply enough, he really shouldn't be shocked about this. Issei. A little, but not much, like I am friends with Sun Wukong. Scathach. You met that monkey? Issei crossed his arms. Issei. More as he challenged me to a duel, my best guess the Buddha told him about me. The brown-haired boy sighed and shook his head. Issei. First, Loki, then Hades, now the Buddha won't be long before Ra starts watching me. Scathach. I see. Just then, Mitsuda walked over to the two with Motohama following. Mitsuda. Sorry to interrupt, but what the fuck is happening? Where the hell are we? Issei sighed as he didn't want to drag his two friends into this. However, he knew that he had no other choice since he had no idea who or what was the boss of this dungeon. For all he knows, it could be a fucking ice dragon. Issei. I hope you two love long stories. Mitsuda. How the hell is this gonna be a long stow? Issei cut his friend off by summoning his dagger and tossing it toward him, but it was never to harm him. In fact, the dagger was meant to protect Mitsuda from an incoming ice arrow that nearly pierced the boy's body. Mitsuda. What the? Motohama. We're under attack. Scathach. An ambush. Scathach summoned her weapon and got into a stance, searching around the area for any signs of their enemies. Issei held his hand out as his dagger, Night Killer came back to his hand. Issei. You two. Go hide. While me and Scathach take care of them. Motohama. Wait, in the trees. The Toma pointed towards some trees, both Issei and Scathach looked over and saw two figures standing on some branches. The brown-haired boy narrowed his eyes as he saw that what just attacked them right now was ice elves. Issei. Ice elves. Elves or elves as they are sometimes called are a humanoid supernatural being told Germanic mythology and folklore, although they are known to appear in other kinds of folklore. Elves generally seem to have been thought of as beings with magical powers and supernatural beauty, ambivalent towards everyday people, and capable of either helping or hindering them. However, these elves weren't anything like that. In fact, these ones had faces that a psychopath would love to see, and that was a face of pure insanity. Issei. Well, those are faces only mothers could love. Issei and Scathach got in a stance. The elves smirked as they soon leaped further into the forest, making Issei groan in annoyance. Issei. Great, that is obviously a trap. Scathach. No, kidding. Mitsuda. What should we do? What if they come back for us? Motohama. We can't stand here. Scathach looked at the two boys. Scathach. Calm down you two, I am sure Issei and I will think of some. Issei. They're right. Scathach. Huh? Issei. This is a red gate, in here we can't leave until the boss is dead. A day within here is an hour out in the real world. Mitsuda. Well, where is it? Issei. That's the thing, I don't know where the boss is, this is the first time I've ever experienced a red gate. Scathach's eyes widen in shock. Scathach. Are you serious? Issei nodded his head and crossed his arms. Issei. Yeah, for now we need to set up a camp somewhere away from the ice elves. Scathach fell silent as she sighed. Scathach. Fine. Issei looked at Mitsuda and Motohama, seeing that both of them are freezing. Issei. Inventory. A screen appeared next to Issei as he reached inside it, pulling out some winter clothes which shocked the others. Name. Warm fur coat. Level of difficulty. None. Type. Miscellaneous. Wearing this item will make you very warm. Issei turned and throws them to his friends and Scathach, who catches them. Issei. Put those on, I can't have you lot getting cold. Issei then took one and started to put it on himself, zipping it up as he placed a hoodie over his head. The others put on the winter clothes. Issei. Let's go. They soon started to make their way toward the forest, in the complete opposite direction the ice elves went. Scathach was confused about why they were heading into the forest, noticing claw marks on a few of the tree trunks. Scathach. Odd. Mitsuda. Issei. Why are we going into the forest? Motohama. Yeah, wouldn't those ice elves come after us? Issei shook his head as he gestured to a tree that had claw marks across its trunk. Issei. They won't, because the creatures that live in this part of the forest, which I believe are ice bears, are gonna be the reason for our survival. Scathach. How do you know? Scathach was confused, why the hell would they go into the territory of something like ice bears? Wouldn't that be worse than the elves, since the bears would just act like wild animals and kill them viciously? Hell, if she had to make a choice between the elves and the bears if she wanted to kill herself, then she would go with the elves. Issei. Simple, I saw numerous claw marks on the trees, which means that the bears marked this part of the forest as their territory. If that's the case then. Scathach's eyes then widened as she realized what Issei was getting at with all of this. Scathach. The only enemies we would have to worry about is the bears because they're not as smart as the elves. Issei nodded his head. Mitsuda. So, Issei, are there any weapons that you can lend us for protection? Issei. The two weapons that I have are daggers, and I doubt you two know how to use them. Motohama. We know, but are they any other weapons that don't have powers? Issei fell silent, there were any other weapons in his inventory cause all he had been using so far is daggers. Sure, there was that sword he used in the first dungeon, but that thing was broken and it wouldn't be useful in a fight anymore. He wondered what he should do, maybe he can buy some new weapons and give them to his friends. Issei. I'm afraid not, sorry. Mitsuda. Then how will we defend ourselves? Issei sighed. Issei. Okay. Give me a second. Mitsuda, Motohama and Scathach watched as Issei looked to the left and started to do something to the air. They stared at the brown-haired boy with confused expressions as they didn't know what he was doing, but in reality, he was getting both Mitsuda and Motohama some weapons. After searching for something at a good price, Issei soon took out 2 items and tossed one to Mitsuda and the other to Motohama. The boy with glasses looked at what Issei gave him and saw that he got a pair of gauntlets, while Mitsuda on the other hand got both a pretty large battle axe and shield. Both? Whoa. Issei. Use those to defend yourselves. Issei was a little disappointed since that cut all of his gold down to half its total. He was saving all of that gold to turn into money and make both his and his mother's life better. He still hasn't given up on that goal. He wants to help his mother and find out who made the system. But he was sure that his mother would understand that he needs to make sure that Mitsuda and Motohama don't get themselves killed while in the Red Gate. Issei. Let's go. The trio nodded as they followed Issei deeper into the snowy forest. The only sound they could hear was the noise coming from the icy wind which echoed all around them. Scathach had to admit that she had never been in such a snowy place before. She has been in many places over the years, and yet this was completely different. However, they soon came to a stop when they heard something which sounded like the growl of an animal. Mitsuda. Do you guys hear that? Motohama. Why yeah. Scathach got into a fighting stance as she searched the area. Issei on the other hand chuckled as he turned to his right and was greeted by a massive white bear that resembled a standard polar bear. However, the only difference between the two is that the one before Issei had glowing red eyes. Motohama. Where did that come from? Mitsuda. Is that a nice bear? Issei glared at the bear and got in a stance with Scathach. Scathach. Okay, how do we fight this? Issei. You don't, I do swap title. With that, Issei felt his title switch to his Wolf Assassin 1, which was a smart idea in this situation, because now all of his abilities have increased by 40% since he is gonna be hunting a beast-type monster. The ice bear roared as it swung one of its claws at Issei, but to its surprise, the brown-haired boy leaped into the air, which made it look up. Issei. Let's hope this works. Issei reared his fist back as his eyes started to glow purple. Gritting his teeth, he delivered a powerful punch to the ice bear's head and basically took the monster down with a single punch. The polar bear landed on the ground causing a massive shockwave. Mitsuda, Motohama, and Scathach's eyes widened in shock as Issei sat down on the ice bear's destroyed head. Issei. That was pretty easy. Level up. Issei. Oh. Did I get a level up from that? Strange, I didn't think I would be getting one so soon. Scathach. Holy. Mitsuda. Issei. That was so cool. Motohama. How did you do that? Issei. Let's just say this isn't my first time fighting monsters of the beast type. Mitsuda. How many have you fought? Issei. There was the steel fangs, those panthers, those monkeys, those werewolves and maybe a few more. Mitsuda. Okay, you gotta tell us everything. Issei sighed. Issei. That's for another time, for now, we gotta make a campfire. He then turned to Scathach. Issei. Right, teach. Scathach nodded her head. Scathach. Yes, we must build one before it gets colder. Issei. Well, let's get on with that. Meanwhile with Ria's Gremory was confused. She told Issei that she would be meeting him at the Occult Research Club and yet he hasn't turned up yet, which confuses her. Her peerage, Sona, and her queen who were in the clubroom because they had to deliver a message to Ria's were also confused by the fact that Issei hasn't turned up yet. She grabbed her phone and called Sun Wukong and it answered to reveal Kenji near the video cam. Ria's was surprised to see the cute baby answer the phone. Ria's. Kenji. Where's your father? Sun Wukong. Kenji, don't put your face near the camera. Wukong took the phone and gave his son to Tijin. Tijin. Let's go play, little bro. She left the room with the cute baby as Wukong looked at his phone. Sun Wukong. Sorry about that, he was curious. Ria's smiled a little. Ria's. It's okay. Sun Wukong. So, what's up? Ria's. Have you seen Issei? Sun Wukong. No, why? Ria's. I told him that I would meet him at the Orc after school, but he hasn't shown up yet. The Monkey King raised an eyebrow, kinda confused. Sun Wukong. Wouldn't he be just at home? Ria's sighed and shook her head. Ria's. No, he said he would meet me here. Sun Wukong. Odd, let me check around the universe. Ria's nodded as the monkey demon closed his eyes. Because he had become so powerful after going on his journey to the west, the one with that stupid monk he had to save numerous times. Sun Wukong could now check around the universe for things, just a perk of being omnipresent. It was a very useful ability, but at the moment though that doesn't seem to be the case. Sun Wukong. That's strange. Ria's. What's wrong? Sun Wukong. I can't seem to be able to locate him. Riaz. Damn it. Sun Wukong. I'm sorry, Riaz. Riaz. It's okay, Wukong. You did your best. Riaz hung up the phone. When she did that, Riaz let out a sigh. Sona. Riaz. The crimson red-haired devil girl shook her head. Riaz. Not even Wukong could find him. Sona. Where is he? Riaz. I don't know. They were both worried about Issei and wonder where the hell he is. Back with Issei. Currently, Issei, Skathich, Mitsuda and Motohama were sitting around a campfire and cooking some pieces of meat on some small branches. How they obtained the meat was actually from the ice bear that Issei killed. The boy used his daggers and sliced up the meat, and now they were cooking it. Mitsuda. Man, this stuff smells like shit. Motohama. Yeah, could use some seasoning for something. Issei shook his head as he started to eat his piece of meat, while he agreed with his two friends about the smell. The taste wasn't as bad as the smell. In fact, the meat almost tasted like a chicken drumstick, even though it was from a bear and not a chicken. Issei. So teach, why are you in Kuo and how are you alive? Skathich. It's a very long story. How much do you know about my history? Issei. Skathich, Gaelic. The shadowy one, in Celtic mythology, female warrior, especially noted as a teacher of warriors. Skathich was the daughter of Ard Grayman of Lethra. She lived on an island, thought to be the Isle of Skye, in an impregnable castle, the gate of which was guarded by her daughter Uithich. At this fortress Skathich trained numerous Celtic heroes in the arts of pole vaulting, useful in the assault of forts, underwater fighting, and combat with a barbed harpoon of her own invention, the Gay Bolg. Her best-known student was Cuchulainn, who stayed with her for a year in order to learn the skills that helped him win many battles. A number of other heroes of Celtic mythology also owed their prowess to the training of the Amazon Skathich. Skathich blinked as she was speechless from what she had just heard from the brown-haired boy. She figured he knew something about her, but this was something else entirely. She had heard rumors about Issei in the past. He was a perverted teenage boy who couldn't stop staring at a woman's breast. She can't help but wonder what other information about her is out in the open, like what else does Issei know? Skathich. Well, that is a shocker. Issei raised an eyebrow. Issei. Is it really? Motohama and Mitsuda, who were eating their pieces of meat, jaws nearly dropped to the ground as they stared at their friend. Motohama. How the fuck do you know all of this? Issei. I read a book. Mitsuda. When? Issei. A while ago. Motohama. How come we did notice? Issei. Probably because you were staring at the girl's tits. Mitsuda and Motohama fell silent. Both. Okay, you got a point there. Issei looks at Skathich. Issei. How are you alive? You lived sometime in the centuries either side of 200 BC. Skathich. It's complicated to explain. Issei. I see, you don't need to tell me if you don't want to. Skathich. If we get out of this, I'll think about telling you. Issei nodded as they continued to eat the meat. After eating all of his food, Issei soon stood up. Motohama. Issei. Where are you going? Issei. I ate, so I'm gonna go do some exercise. Issei turned and started to walk away from the campfire. Skathich. You can't be serious. Issei sighed. Issei. If I don't, there will be a penalty. With that, Issei left the trio to go do his daily exercise because if he doesn't, then he was gonna be sent to the penalty zone and he doesn't want to go back there for fucking hours. Sure, Skathich was skilled and all that, but even she had her limits. Motohama and Mitsuda just stepped into the world of the supernatural, so they aren't gonna be able to do anything. Issei's exercise shouldn't take too long since it was only sit-ups, push-ups, squats, and a 10 kilometers run. However, he didn't want to run off into a squad of ice elves who are most likely hunting them down. He'll need to try something to not let that happen. But what? He doesn't know, though he will come up with something, cause if he doesn't, then the others are as good as a cooked turkey on Thanksgiving. Issei. Drake. You hear me? Just then, the former Welsh dragon of domination shadowy head rose from Issei's shadow and took form. Drake. Yes, my liege. How may I serve you? Issei. What are the chances of an ice bear cave being nearby? Drake. I'd say 78%. Issei chuckled. Issei. That sounds good enough to me. With that, the brown-haired boy quickly got his daily exercise over and done with, which wasn't too hard to do. Although, like he stated before, the only truly annoying part of it was the 10 kilometers run that he had to do, and he didn't want to just up and run straight into some ice elves. But he managed, and in the end, he noticed something in the corner of his left eye, and it was what he hoped to find. An ice bear cave. Issei. Bingo. Issei slowly made his way toward the cave. The sound of the cracking snow beneath his feet filled his eardrums as it was so bloody loud. He swears that snow is not meant to be this loud. It's always quiet in TV shows and movies, so why the fuck was it so loud? He didn't know, and to be honest, didn't actually care, since he was only going toward the cave to do some hunting and hopefully level up some more. As he stood outside the cave, he picked up a nearby rock and threw it into the cave. This resulted in a snarl to be heard from within the darkness, followed by numerous glowing red eyes that stared into the boy's soul. However, Issei was anything but scared as a small smirk grew on his face, and from the darkness of the cave came what he was looking for: ice bears. Issei. Found you. He quickly counted and saw that there were maybe around 30 or more ice bears. This was a good thing, a very good thing. Issei smirked as both of his eyes glowed a beautiful purple color. Issei. Come on out. He snapped his fingers as his shadow soldiers minus Drag rose from their master's shadow, prepared to battle the group of ice bears before them. They all bowed to their liege awaiting his orders. Issei. Kill them all. They took out their weapons and charged at the ice bears. The bears roared as they charged toward the shadow army. With that, a bloody battle had begun, or rather a one-sided slaughter, since when the soldiers that served under Issei Haidu were destroyed, they quickly regenerated back to normal and continued fighting. The knights wielded their weapons, swords, axes, spears, and much more, while the mages created fireballs and launched them at the ice bears, decimating numerous of them. Issei watched with a small smile on his face. Issei. The power of the shadow soldiers is beyond my expectations. This level of regeneration is almost at that of immortality. The only downside is that it's draining my mana. 13/23/1990. Standing next to the brown-haired boy was Igris, who remained by his liege's side, waiting patiently for his master's command to strike when the leader of the ice bears appears from the cave. Issei. Igris, when you see the leader, immediately strike it down. Igris nodded his head. However, Issei didn't have to wait long, because soon enough the leader of the ice bears showed up and roared loudly. Issei's eyes widened slightly. The leader was bigger than Cerberus and had numerous scars across its body. The boy wasn't expecting the leader to be gigantic. It looked big enough to put him, Ria's, and her entire peerage on its back. The boy wasn't expecting the leader to be gigantic. It looked big enough to put him, Ria's, and her entire peerage on its back. The leader growled and started to tear through the shadow soldiers. Even though they regenerated, it was really bad, since now Issei's mana was going down even faster than what it was originally doing. This caused the brown-haired boy to grit his teeth slightly as he looked at Igris. Issei. Igris. The former blood-red commander nodded his head and stepped toward the leader of the ice bears, who growled and snarled at the shadow knight, who took out his massive sword with his right hand. Igris made a gesture to the giant bear to come towards him, making the leader roar and charge at Igris, who dodged and grabbed the leader by his tail, began spinning the bear, and hurled him away. The leader growled in pain and anger as it roared at Igris. The knight then charged toward the bear and leaped into its body. He then stabbed his weapon into the creature and started to drag it across the massive beast's body, causing it to roar in pain and agony. Blood erupted from the wounds and tainted the snow-white ground with the color of scarlet red, something that reminded Issei a little bit of Ria's hair. Issei's eyes widened from what he had just seen. He knew Igris was powerful, but nothing like this. He wanted to say something, but he was cut off as the ice bear leader stood on its two back legs and swung at Igris. The knight merely jumped into the air, slicing the creature's head off its shoulders. Issei. Holy shit, I would have stood no chance against Igris if he used his sword in our battle. Blood squirted out of the body and dropped down as Igris bowed to his liege. Issei. Igris, that was amazing. A smile grew on the boy's face as he placed his hand on the shadow's shoulder. Issei. You've done well. Issei turned his attention to the deceased body of the ice bear leader, smirking. Issei. Arise. When he said that, silence filled the air, and the brown-haired boy watched as a shadowy pour rose from the corpse of the monster, slamming into the ground. Slowly but surely the leader of the ice bears and the numerous other ice bears that were slaughtered rose up from the dead as his shadow soldiers. You have successfully extracted the shadow. LV.1 Rank. Knight. Issei. Oh. I can name this one as well. Issei began to think of a name for his new soldier, and before long he came up with something. Issei. I'll name you Tank. The ice bear growled as it lowered its head to Issei, making the boy chuckle a little as it seemed to like the name that he gave it. In fact, he was surprised by that since he was terrible at coming up with names. The only reason why Drake and Igris have such baddest names was cause they were already called that when they were alive, but Tank on the other hand didn't have one. But now he does, and he likes it. Tank LV.1 Rank. Knight. Issei reached his hand out and petted Tank on the head. Issei. Good boy. Tank nuzzled into his new master's hand, enjoying the pet. Issei chuckled as all his shadows vanished and returned to their master's shadow, waiting for the time that he shall need them. Issei. Drake. Drake appeared and bowed to his liege. Drake. Yes, my liege. Issei. Since you're a dragon, you can smell one of them watching me, right? The former heavenly dragon nodded his head to his liege. Issei. I figured. You can come out. Silence. Issei sighed and shook his head. He knew that the ice elf was there, and yet it was just sticking to the shadows. With that, Issei turned and slowly made his way back to the others. Drake. My liege, you know that they will know the location of your camp. Issei. I know, Drake. That's exactly what I want. Drake raised an eyebrow at his master. It took a moment, but he soon realized what his liege's plan was. He was gonna lure the ice elves to them so he can kill their boss and finally get out of the Red Gate. Drake had to say it was a smart plan, but one wrong move and everything and everyone shall die. After a long walk, Issei soon made it back to the others. Issei. I'm back. Scathach. Hello. Issei saw Mitsuda and Motohama on the ground with large bumps on his head, making him deadpan because he figured out they were being perverted to their teacher. Issei sighed, but he soon perked up as he sensed something. Issei. Look alive, we got company. Scathach. Huh. Issei looked at them before turning to the open space that leads into the trees, narrowing his eyes as they started to glow purple. Issei. You may as well drop your stealth. Your powerful energy makes hiding pointless. Scathach, Mitsuda and Motohama were confused about what Issei was talking about. But they soon realized what the brown-haired boy was talking about when they heard soft laughter. As if coming into existence 19 ice elves appeared with another, who Issei guessed was the leader and the final boss sitting atop a white horse. The leader chuckled as he grew a grin on his face. Ice elf leader. There was one useful one among the trash. Hearing this caused Issei to glare at the ice elf. Issei. Did you just call us trash? The monster blinked this one, a surprised expression growing on its face. Ice elf leader. How are you speaking to us? Hearing that surprised Issei as well, did this mean the elves before him were speaking a language that humans couldn't understand? Issei. I can understand them. Issei was confused about what was happening. How is he talking to them? Why is he talking to them? Issei shook his head and will figure it out later. Ice elf leader. No matter. Soldiers kill the 3 men but spare the woman. We have plans for her, he said as his army looked at Scathach with lust. Issei. Not want to talk. The leader of the ice elves soon started laughing. Ice elf leader. You're right, well to be able to converse, that is splendid. There is someone I want to introduce. He then gestured to an ice elf next to him. Ice elf leader. He's the one who notified us that there was someone strong in the group of humans. He wants to have a one-on-one fight with. The other ice elf suddenly lost its head as Issei appeared behind them, knife already out. Issei. Anything else? The leader only grinned at the brown-haired boy. Ice elf leader. Well, aren't you interesting? Issei tried to decapitate this one as well, but the ice elf brought out its knife to block. The boss got off his horse, twirled the knife in his hand, and walked forward. Ice elf leader. I do have a question despite not being a human, why are you with them? Hearing this confused Issei, causing him to raise an eyebrow. Issei. What the heck are you talking about? Ice elf leader. Ah, so you don't notice it yourself. The boss laughed as Issei, Mitsuda, Motohama, and Scathach glared. They then watched as the leader pointed at his own head, mainly where his brain should be located. Ice elf leader. There's a voice in our head telling us to kill all humans. But I can't hear it when you're around. Issei. What? What do you mean you can't hear it when I'm around? And what do you mean by a voice telling you to kill all humans? The leader was about to answer the boy's question, but just then the leader started glitching. This took Issei by surprise. He wondered what the hell was going on. This couldn't be the work of the system. This had to be because of something or rather someone else, more powerful. But who? Why? Ice elf leader soon returned to normal and smirked at the brown-haired boy. Ice elf leader. There's no need for us to fight, we do not want unnecessary casualties on our end. He then pointed at Scathach. Ice elf leader. Give us the woman and we shall let you live, how about that? Issei narrowed his eyes. Ice elf leader. Do you accept our proposal? Issei. No, you think I'll just give her to you? Well, you're wrong because I am not giving someone beautiful like Scathach over to you disgusting creatures. Hearing that made Scathach blush and smile in gratitude that Issei made the right choice. Ice elf leader. Oh, well, I guess you chose the hard way. The leader of the ice elves smirked as his eyes glowed. Ice elf leader, do you plan on fighting me and my soldiers all on your own? Do you think you can handle our numbers all by yourself? The entire group of ice elves smirked at him. There was no way a mere human could take them all on and hope to actually win this battle. Issei didn't feel afraid and simply smirked. Issei. Numbers. What numbers? Suddenly, the boy's shadow suddenly shot out and started to expand as his shadow soldiers appeared. Scathach, Mitsuda, Motohama, and the ice elves were taken back as shadow knights and shadow bears appeared and were ready for combat. Igris and Drake stood next to Issei as Tank was behind him and the elves were now starting to sweat in fear. Scathach. Wait, is that Drake? Ice elf leader. My army. Attack. They charged at Issei and his army. Issei raised his arm and snapped his fingers as his army charged toward the ice elves. Mitsuda. Holy shit. The group watched as Issei's army began to be torn apart, only to regenerate and take down the ice elves by either stabbing, slashing, biting, or ripping them apart. Mitsuda and Motohama almost wanted to throw up, but they were so entranced by the battle before them that they couldn't take their eyes off the fight. Scathach stared at Issei, an expression of awe on her face. Scathach. Just who are you, Issei Haidu? The battle raging before the ground looked like a brutal bloodbath, but the only one who wasn't losing against the shadows was the leader of the Ice Elves. In fact, that bastard was tearing through them and draining the brown-haired boy's mana like a goddamn train on a track. Issei gritted his teeth. Issei. I knew that he would be annoying. He was about to attack Issei, but Igris stood in front and sliced off his arm. Issei. Thank you, Igris. Igris nodded his head, and the leader leaped back and chuckled. Ice Elf leader. Not bad, you're pretty interesting. Issei. Thanks, but you should know that you're not gonna win this battle. The Ice Elf glared at Issei, but he soon smirked. Ice Elf leader. Maybe, but I can do something else. Issei. And that is? Just then, the leader snapped his fingers as Issei heard a noise from above. He quickly looked up only to see numerous ice elves in the trees above, his eyes widened as they started to fire ice arrows at them. Issei. Take cover. Both Drag and Igris instantly started to cover their master, protecting him from the incoming attack. Scathach managed to dodge the arrows by using her weapon which she summoned, destroying them all. However, Mitsuda and Motohama on the other hand were not so lucky. They were impaled in the guts as Issei and Scathach's eyes widened. Issei. Mitsuda Motohama. Issei ran toward his two friends who had fallen to the ground, blood pouring from the holes that were made where the arrows pierced them. When he got to them, tears threatened to escape from Issei's eyes as he tried his best to keep some pressure on Motohama and Mitsuda's wounds. Issei. Come on you two, stay with me. Scathach covered her mouth as she was shocked that two of her students were dying, sure they had some perverted personalities and whatnot. But that didn't mean that they deserved to die, if anything she was sure that one day their personalities would get them both some girlfriends of their own. Issei tried to heal them, but he was low on health. 103 1990s. Issei. Damn it, that leader and those ice elves are draining my mana too fast. Mitsuda coughed up some blood. Mitsuda. Well, looks like this is the end. Motohama. Why yeah. Issei. Don't say that. Just hang in there. Motohama. Issei, don't blame yourself for this, we got ourselves into this mess. Issei. No. This wasn't your fault. We didn't know this would happen. Just hang in there a little longer. Issei tried to look for a healing item in his inventory. However, he couldn't find anything, and even if he did, he doubts that it would work on either of them. As this was happening, Drag, Igris and Scathach, who were enraged by what the leader of the Ice Elves had done, were struggling against the said monster because even with one arm he was still very skilled. Scathach. Die you, bastard. She swung her weapon at the monster, who blocked the attack with the dagger and grinned evilly. Ice Elf leader. Haha. You think that one arm is enough to put me down? He kicked the woman in the stomach which sent her flying back a good couple of feet. Luckily Igris was able to catch her before she slammed into a tree. The leader soon turned and charged toward Issei, who had lowered his head, his hair shadowing his eyes. The elf was gonna put an end to this battle by killing the master of the shadows. He leaped into the air and brought down his dagger. Ice Elf leader. Die. Before the Ice Elf could finish his sentence, he was punched in the gut and sent flying back. Scathach, who saw this, was shocked as there were now two shadow soldiers standing behind Issei, both instances. The appearance of the shadows looked very familiar to her. In fact, she knew who they were. It was Motohama and Mitsuda. It was Motohama and Mitsuda. LV.1 rank. Knight. LV.1 rank. Knight. Issei. You. Issei glared at the leader as his eyes glow blue while he pointed his finger at him and released his aura. Issei. How dare you? Ice Elf leader. What the hell? Issei snapped his fingers as the two new shadows rose up. Issei. Iron. The shadow with a massive axe and shield, named Iron, narrowed its eyes at the leader of the Ice Elves. Issei. Greed. The other shadow, now named Greed, started to crack its knuckles, getting a satisfying cracking sound. The monster was pretty much pissing itself at this point. Its eyes started around the area as it tried to look for any more of its kin to help it. However, much to the Ice Elf's shock and horror, he was the only one left. Ice Elf leader. And no. Impossible. Issei. Igris. The former blood-red commander appeared behind the Ice Elf and sliced off the monster's other arm, causing it to scream in pain and agony. Issei. Iron, Greed, teach him a lesson. The two new soldiers nodded as they walked over to their killer. Ice Elf leader. No. Please. Have mercy. I'm sorry. Issei. You shouldn't have pushed my buttons. The two soldiers towered over the leader and began to mercilessly and brutally beat him up to a pulp, making the leader scream in agony and cry for them to stop, but they didn't listen as they kept brutally assaulting him. Issei and Scathach watched the entire thing happen before them, standing where they were in complete and utter silence, as the two boys had their revenge on the monsters who ended their lives. Once they were done though, they quickly leaped back as Drag loomed above the Ice Elf with his massive fist reared back. Ice Elf leader. and no plea. The former Welsh dragon didn't allow the ice elf to finish what he was saying. He slammed his fist into the monster once before he rose it up and slammed it back down onto the monster. The dungeon boss has been slain. Level up. Level up. Issei sighed. Issei. It's over. He looks at his two new soldiers as he walked over to them. Scathach. Issei, are they still? Issei. Both Motohama and Mitsuda are gone, there no iron and greed. Scathach. I see, can they speak? Scathach was cut off as Iron roared and slammed his battle axe onto the deceased body of the ice elves over and over again. Issei. Hey, hey, hey. The shadow soldier stopped as Issei frowned and pointed at him. Issei. You take it easy. Iron blinked as the brown-haired boy shook his head and sighed, turning and walking away from him. Issei. I worry about the future. Iron had a very confused expression before turning to Igris. The older knight looked at the newest recruit and shook his head before walking away. A feeling of disappointment was palpable from the older knight. Like a disappointed father almost. That left Iron to look at Greed and the weaker knights before giving a victory cry. The weaker knights followed and gave a cry and raised their arms. Greed on the other hand merely facepalmed. Issei. Mitsuda still has his recklessness. Scathach. I can see that, so what now? Issei smiled at Scathach, causing the woman to grow a slight blush. Issei. We go home. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.